Hi, I'm Rebecca from Psych Tips, and today I'm going to be talking to you about getting over your heartbreak. Heartbreak is painful. It hurts, it can last a really long time, and it makes us feel like there's no joy in our lives. My aim is to talk to you today and give you 4 tips about how you can make heartbreak that little bit less painful and how you can start seeing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The first thing I'll say about heartbreak is that most of us will go through it at some point in our lives, and it sucks. But we get through it. Look at the amount of people that are in your life at the moment who've got through heartbreak, who've moved on to better than what they had previously, and there is no reason why that is going to be different for you. But the important thing to say about heartbreak is that it's a grieving process. Grief is a natural reaction to loss. It's horrid to lose someone that you're really, really in love with. It's horrid to lose someone that you really care for. And so don't think that there's something wrong with you because it feels so painful. It is a totally normal thing to feel, but there are things you can do to try and make it so there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Point number 1, do the opposite of what you feel like. Now that sounds a bit weird, but what we know is if you're feeling really, really rubbish about yourself, you're probably going to do things that aren't very helpful. That might mean eating loads of really bad food. It might mean not going out of the house. Perhaps it means not seeing any of your friends. And actually, those are the things that are going to make you feel even worse in the long run. So I tend to say, if you're feeling really heartbroken, try and do the opposite of how you're feeling. If you want to stay in and not go outside, force yourself to go outside and get 10 minutes of fresh air. If you don't want to see any friends and you want to totally cut yourself off from them, force yourself to make contact with a friend, even if it's just online. If you don't want to look after yourself and you don't want to do any exercise and you don't want to eat healthily, try and do one thing that means you're looking after your body that bit more. Now, this isn't going to say that you're going to be over your heartbreak really quickly, but if you can start doing the opposite of what you feel like doing, then you will start to feel a tiny bit better. Because heartbreak is a whole body thing. It affects the way you think, it affects the way you feel, it affects the way you walk physically. It affects all parts of you. And if you can start to change some of the behaviours that are negative and that are playing into the heartbreak, you will start to experience a slight improvement. Point number 2 is make commitments. If you make commitments, you're far more likely to stick with them than saying, well, maybe I'll go and see my friend at some point this week. Well, maybe I'll leave the house at some point this weekend. Make a commitment, whether that's seeing a friend, whether that's going to see something at the cinema, even if it's a particular time of day where you're going to commit to watching a bit of television, even if it's a particular time of day where you're going to walk your dog, even if it's a particular time of day where you're going to eat a meal, make a commitment to do it. The more commitments you make and the more precise you are about when you're going to do those things, the more likely you are to do them. So make commitments. Something that can really help is getting a diary, getting a piece of paper and literally writing down what commitments you're going to do and when. Something else that can really help is then showing the commitments that you're going to make to someone else, because then they can hold you accountable and they can check up on you to see if they're the things that you're doing. If you end up committing to doing something like a class or an online learning thing or a gym thing or an outdoor activity with other dog walkers, there is far more chance of you doing it than you just saying, I'll wait until I feel like it. By saying I'll wait until I feel like it, you're decreasing the chances of doing it, because the reality is very rarely do we wake up and suddenly think, I know I'm going to do it today. It comes when we push ourselves. So push yourself by making a commitment, by telling someone you're going to do it and then completing it. And even if you don't enjoy it, that's okay. The reality is if you're feeling really intense heartbreak, you're probably not going to enjoy a lot of things. But if you can do the task, give yourself a huge pat on the back because you've reached a 10 out of 10 on productivity. The alternative, that may have been staying in bed. It may have been just depressively thinking about your relationship and how good it used to be. And that's not going to help you lead a more fulfilling life. So commit to things that you're going to do, tell someone about it. And when you've done them, even if you didn't enjoy it, give yourself a pat on the back because the opposite was far better. Point number 3. Consider your purpose outside of the relationship. Heartbreak can be a whole change in your identity. It can leave you questioning who I am outside of this relationship. But I was always a partner. I was always the boyfriend or girlfriend. I was always the husband. I was always the wife. Who I am without that. But your identity is so much more than just who you were in that relationship. Presumably you're a friend, maybe you're a relative to someone, maybe you're a teacher to someone, maybe you're a listener to someone, maybe you have a profession, maybe you're someone who enjoys exercise, maybe you're someone who enjoys certain hobbies and that's part of your identity. So maybe you need to think about what are the other parts of your identity and how you can start bringing those things back into your life more. The reality is if you were in a relationship, some of those things may have got neglected. So try and think about the you pre-relationship. What were you like? Did you have parts in your life that you don't have anymore? What can you do to bring them back? And if you didn't have different purposes in your life before you were in this relationship, now is the time to start thinking, who is it I want to be outside of this relationship? What is it I want my life to look like? How can I give myself an identity and a bit of purpose outside of this relationship? Maybe that means committing to doing something new. Maybe that means committing to trying to develop some skills that you've already started but haven't developed. Maybe that means committing to looking after your body in a way you've not committed to before. Maybe that means committing to friendships in a way you haven't committed to them before. Think about your purpose outside of your heartbreak. Think about how you want your life to be and what little steps you can do to try and work towards some of those other identities. Point number 4. And I have got no doubt if you're watching this video and you're experiencing heartbreak, you will absolutely be doing what I'm about to tell you next. Euphoric recall. What's that? I hear you saying. Well, euphoric recall is simply what it says on the tin. It's where you slip into remembering the really, really good bits of something, but it's not reality. Count the amount of times you have engaged in euphoric recall over the past 24 hours. My guess is you'll be well into the dozens of times. Each time you slip into euphoric recall, what you're doing is remembering the really good parts of the relationship, all the best bits, the bits that made you smile, the start of it. But that's not going to be reality. Presumably the reality of the relationship, were there also moments where you were sad? There were also moments in the relationship where you were feeling pretty low and sad. And perhaps there were moments in the relationship where you felt isolated, where you weren't happy with how things are going. Maybe your voice wasn't heard in the relationship. Perhaps you were feeling quite like you were really lonely. Perhaps you wanted to say some things and you never did. Perhaps there were moments where you thought, I shouldn't be here, and you stuck at it. That's the reality, not just the moments of euphoric recall where you were having an amazing time, you were laughing, you were smiling. So if you're engaging in euphoric recall, the key to managing it is to allow yourself to see the full picture of the relationship. It wasn't just a relationship that was absolutely amazing, full of countless good times and nothing that was bad. It had its bad moments too. So each time you notice yourself doing the euphoric recall, pull yourself back and also remember the more negative side to the relationship because it was undoubtedly there. Hopefully, if you can put these 4 things into practice, you'll start feeling slightly better and you will start moving towards the light at the end of the tunnel, because there is one. If you found today's content helpful, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hopefully I'll be able to give you plenty more tips so you can learn how psychology can improve your life on a day-to-day basis.